What's up guys, Justin here from CBI Off-Road. Today I'm going to show you how to install these frame-mounted rock sliders on your 3rd generation Tundra. Stay tuned for the install. All right, so we got our hardware laid out here. So just unpack your hardware, make sure you got everything, your carriage bolts, your zinc plated bolts, 1/2-inch nylock nuts, washers, strut washers, and this plate here. So this is gonna be sent out for all the CrewMax models, and we'll show you later on in the video what this does, but you may or may not need this just depending on the way your truck is set up. But I will explain that as we get further along in the install. Let's move to the sliders and let me show you what to expect there. Okay, so we got these laid out. Now what we need to do, because Toyota has so many different trim models for these Tundras, is we need to make sure that we have the correct sliders in front of us. So behind me is a hybrid short bed. It's a 5.5-foot bed. And on this, and it's a CrewMax, so on the second leg, it says HYB, obviously that means hybrid, CM, which indicates CrewMax, and then P2. This is the passenger side, second foot, is what that means. And on the back foot, it'll say R, that means rear. So we know we have the correct sliders to do this install. Now, if you have a double cab, you will see DC, and that will be stamped on the rear mounting foot. And the rear mounting foot is gonna look way different. Instead of having that C style, it's gonna be really flat. So that's the double cab. Now, the long beds, the 6.5 foot, you'll see on here, it'll say CrewMax, but it'll also say 6.5B, and that means 6.5 foot bed. And the non-hybrids, the CrewMax 5.5 foot bed, non-hybrid, will not have any markings up here. It will just be the regular slider. So if you have a CrewMax 5.5 foot bed, non-hybrid, there will not be any markings aside from the R on the rear foot. So I think that covers everything. So again, just make sure you have the correct slider before you dive into your install. All right, so we recommend starting on the driver's side. It's gonna be the easier side. Once you get that accomplished, you're gonna really have a good understanding of how the slider goes into place, so that when you start the more difficult side on the passenger side, you're gonna have a great foundation of how to get it on there. So we're just gonna start. We got a plastic clip here in the frame. We need to remove it on the outside with a flathead screwdriver, and then stick the screwdriver through the frame, kind of give it a bump to get the plastic cover out on the other side. Once we get those out, we'll move to another clip up front. I'll show you that one as well. All right, so this clip is located basically right in the center of the driver door underneath, kind of in between the front 2 mounting feet. All we're gonna do is get a flathead screwdriver and kind of pop it up out of its clip, just to give us a little bit of room to slide these brackets underneath that line. It's very critical that the brackets go underneath these lines. So this is just kind of giving us a little bit more room, just popping it straight up like that. Once we get the slider in, we'll pop it back into place. All right, so now we're ready to put the slider in place. So this rear hole is gonna line up with the hole in the frame where we remove that plastic clip. So you can kind of base where you're at off of that hole right there. So we'll get it lined up. This is obviously better with 2 people, but it can be done with 1. Just make sure you kind of get it in place and then push firmly towards the truck. So once the slider's up there, it will hold itself, but just be careful until you get a bolt started. So we'll just kind of push upward to get that flat and get our 4.5-inch bolt in place with a washer and strut washer and nut on the inside. Just get these started. Don't tighten anything yet until we have all the bolts in. Then we'll start tightening them down. All right, now that we have that bolt holding the rear of the slider, we're gonna jump up front with 2 of these carriage bolts and get these guys started. Then we'll just start working our way backwards with the carriage bolts. The orientation of these is the round head faces the ground, so they're gonna go in just like this. And if the top is not lining up, just push upward on that slider and that'll kind of rock it towards you and you'll be able to get it through. Once you get the bolts in, we're gonna get the 1/2-inch nylock flange nuts and get those started. Like I said, we'll just start working our way back. Okay, all the bolts are started. Now we're gonna take a couple 3/4 ratchet wrenches and get these tightened down. I do have two of these. One has a flex head on it and the other doesn't. Each one has its place on this install, so I would definitely recommend having one of each, whether it has flex head with a ratchet or the straight one. I definitely recommend both. All right, so we got everything tightened down. Let's jump on the passenger side. Okay, so we're gonna remove the same plastic clips like we did on the other side with the addition of a couple clamps, and there's some additional lines on this side that need to be moved out of the way. Just check your fitment. You may need to also lower this little plastic cover for the gas tank to be able to get some bolts in there, but try it first without it. Again, every truck's a little bit different, so you'll just have to try it and see. But we're gonna go ahead and get these plastic clips removed, and then I'll show you up close the lines that we're gonna have to take out. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this, this plastic clip out, and again, we're towards the rear, right by the lower control arm mount right here. So again, on this hybrid model, this is the only clip and through bolt that we have to get, but other trucks may be different. So start here and take this one out, and then line your slider up, and then you'll be able to see what other plastic clips similar to this need to be removed. But right now we'll remove this one. We'll have to get a 12mm wrench to remove this clip, or this bolt, I'm sorry, and another one further up the truck that I'll show you in a minute. So we're about even right here with the front mounting foot, which is about underneath the driver's door. So we just need to pop this clip up. And then if you follow these lines on top of the frame, we'll do the same thing on a few clips back of those. We're not gonna remove those. We just need some slack in there again to kind of push them out of the way to get our mounting bracket in. So again, with the flathead screwdriver, just pop those guys straight out. Be careful that you don't bend these too sharp. And this truck, there's only that clip there, so we have plenty of movement here to get our mounting foot flush right here. Now we'll go back to the rear of the vehicle. All right, so we're back to the rear of the vehicle. Here's the lower control arm for reference, and the bolt we previously removed right here. So there's a little plastic clip right here where this cable is. That one will just pop straight up. That's no big deal. The difficult one is if you feel back there, there's some more fuel lines, and there's a few small ones and then one big one. The clip that the bigger, larger diameter fuel line is in, we'll have to remove that clip, and to do that, it's kind of difficult, and again, this is kind of all by feel, but you need to pull up and outward with that clip, and it'll release. Once we get that, then we'll be able to slide our slider into place and start re-securing everything down. So we'll get these two popped up, and then we'll be able to get the slider slid into place.
All right, here we've located that clip. Very, very hard to see. Again, a lot of this is by feel, but my middle finger is tapping on that clip right there. So that's the one that we'll have to pull outward and upward to get that out.
All right, so with those unclipped, we're ready to slide the slider into place. Now, this is probably a two-guy job on this side just because you have to be extremely careful with the lines back here, and we also have the lines up front. So if you have one person on each side, you can really manage those lines and make sure that your slider is in the proper location and not pinching or smashing any lines. So this is gonna have to be out of the way for our mounting foot to slide on. And again, this hole right here is the reference for this back hole. So once you align those, that'll be the alignment the rest of the slider needs. So the bracket is gonna slide underneath those lines back here and up front. So just be extra cautious of that. It's very tight in there, so make sure that you don't damage any lines.
right, so we got the slider in place. Now you can see why we wanted to do the easy one first, because this is just really hard getting into the right spot with all those lines. So we're in place. We're just gonna get some bolts started. I'm gonna probably drop this plastic gas tank cover. These are 12 millimeter. Again, just to access the mounting foot a little bit easier, but I'll start in the front on this one and we'll work our way back. So just be careful you don't knock it off of the frame until you get some bolts started. All right, so the nature of this slider is very close to the fuel tank. Toyota didn't give us many options on this. So as long as you have a good 1/8 inch gap or bigger, you'll be just fine. On this rear foot, this is where the shim comes into place. The rear foot kind of lands on one of these bulges in the gas tank, and it's a lot closer than an 1/8 inch. So what we're gonna do is insert this shim between the frame and this mounting foot just to give us a little bit of spacing out so that we can gain some distance from the fuel tank. All right, so we're just gonna take a 3/4 ratchet, tighten this guy down to pull this closer, and then we'll get our 4.5 inch bolt going through the frame right here. All right, so we went ahead and tightened these 2 bolts down. We'll just start making our way backward, getting everything tightened down. Very important, reach up there and just make sure that these lines are not making contact. Everything's gonna be really close and these will remain unclipped, but just make sure that they're not making contact with the bolt going up, and then we'll re-secure with our 12 millimeter bolt this hole here, and like I said, tighten down up there. All right, guys, welcome to the finish line. Glad you got your sliders installed. Hope you liked the video. Please give us a like, subscribe to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.